Today's tutorial is for the Hex Bag. This is a collaboration between Cork and Copper Designs and Fiber Arts. Cork and Copper Designs makes patterns. She has wrote several patterns. I have done one already on this channel and I'm hoping to do more. She partnered with Fiber Arts, who makes matte black and gunmetal hardware, zipper tape, and sells webbing as well. At the end of this tutorial, I will have an unboxing of all the materials I have. I didn't want to put it in the front in case some people don't like unboxings, but even if you don't want to stick around and watch that, I do want to say a huge thank you to Amanda from Fiber Arts. She was wonderful in putting this package together for me, and I'm very, very thankful for her. And if you're looking to make some purchases for either matte black or gunmetal hardware, she ships quickly and her prices are extremely reasonable. So definitely join her Facebook group to see what's going on and to watch all the specials and deals she's always offering, as well as the new products she's coming out with. The theme for this collaboration is Dark Alice, and of course the hardware had to match. So from Fiber Arts is both of my zipper tapes, both of my zipper pulls, these side connectors that I'm going to use in this pattern, a chain strap. Now I have used several chain straps, but this one feels so good because it has leather or maybe vinyl, I'm not for sure, ribbon sewn in between it, so it makes it very flexible and soft, and it's just fun to play with. I'm also using a swivel hook from Fiber Arts as well. This pattern comes with 3 different views and 2 sizes for each view, so for a total of 6 different options in this pattern. There's also going to be SVG files and this applique and embroidery file if you want to use the embroidery file to embroider the cat face, or use the heat transfer vinyl, which is what I have on mine. If you have a cutting machine, that makes it super easy to just kind of fancy up this bag and to have your zipper pull match. There will also be cut and sews from THCG in the size large. So now that we've talked a little bit about the hardware that I'm using and about the pattern, let's talk about the pieces we need. I'm sewing up view C in the size large. View C has these darts at the bottom to give this bag just a little bit more depth, to make it open a little wider so you can fit more things in it. So I'll have 2 exterior pieces. This is going to be my front. This is going to be my back. I did add a tag to both of the backs. I'm also going to have 2 lining pieces for the same shape. So a very quick, easy pattern to cut out. On this version, I'm going to use that chain strap, so I'll use 2 connectors, one on each side. I'm going to be adding credit card slots onto this version, and I'll be using this pink zipper tape. I'm going to add a woven tag whenever I sew my credit card slots onto the lining, just for an extra touch. For my other version, I'll be using the same size. It's still the View C size large. I'll be using the pink for the exterior. Lining will be this floral print. And I'm going to be using zipper tape. I still have the same heat transfer vinyl applique on, the same tag on. But on this one, I will only use one side connector, 1 swivel hook, and I'll be making a wristlet strap. I'm going to have the wristlet strap cut out to the pattern measurement. We will fold both of the long raw edges into the middle line, and then I'll fold it again for a 4-way fold. I will do the folding off camera, but I'll come back to show you how I'll add the swivel hook and how we will top stitch that around to make sure we have a nice finished wristlet strap. So in this pattern, the zipper installation is a little bit different than what I typically do, but I'm very excited to try a new technique that I'm hoping will improve my zipper installation on this pouch. So I hope you stick around and watch this video, and maybe we can find a new zipper installation technique that we like, that I hope maybe can improve some of our skills in the sewing room. The first thing the pattern wants us to work on is to sew on our zipper tabs. I'm using a raw edge zipper tab. So all I had to do was take my piece of vinyl that was cut according to the pattern measurements and to fold it around the edge. If you want to use a fabric zipper end, the pattern does have instructions for that, but I'm just going to sew across this with the seam allowance given in the pattern to secure this vinyl on the zipper end. The pattern does tell us that we will need to trim off a little bit of this zipper tab after we're done sewing it, just to clean up the edges. So that will complete this end of the zipper. For the other end, she gives you two methods to do. This is the method that I'm choosing to do with folding down my zipper tape 90 degrees before I start sewing it. If you want, you could cut the zipper tape to the pattern measurements and then do the fold when you're attaching it to the exterior. Both ways are ways that she recommends doing. It's just whichever your preference is. Make sure that the zipper tape stays within the measurement she gives within the pattern. This zipper will not be in your seam allowance on this pouch. So now that I have the zipper ends sewn onto both of these zippers, I'm going to trim up the edges on both of these, and then I'll set it aside until we attach it to our exterior. Now we're going to pull out our credit card slots. Let me open this up to show you what it looks like. The pattern gives you the measurement for this long strip. This is a accordion style fold. So the first thing you will do is you'll make the measurements on your strip, and I'm not going to give those measurements out, but you make those measurements and you will make hills and valleys, or peaks and valleys, whichever way you say it. But for one, you will fold it wrong sides together. The next, you'll fold it right sides together. And then after you have those creases made, you will simply fold them up to make the credit card slots. This is what you will have on this piece. The pattern does tell us that we'll have a little bit overhanging as extra. So once you have this folded this way, you have 1, 2, 3 peaks now. We are going to top stitch the bottom two. Do not top stitch the top one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate these, and I'm going to go over to my machine and top stitch 1/8 of an inch away. I have no interfacing on this. The designer says do not interface this. It would get bulky if you have interfacing on this, so just leave this uninterfaced. Just as a side note, her credit card slot method is my favorite of all credit card slot methods, and I would buy her patterns just for this method. I feel like it is a great way to add credit card slots to any pouch, wristlet, or even bag. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to simply lift up this bottom part, and now I'm just going to do a small base between these two bottom layers just to hold them in place while I do this next step. Now that you have these credit card slots basted there on the sides, this is your back part that was laying like this. Take it and bring it all the way over to the front. Your overhang can be trimmed off at this point, but now what you need to do is you need to sew down both of these sides. We're leaving this bottom open so that we can turn it right sides out. Make sure you do the full seam allowance when sewing down the sides. That is a construction stitch, not a basting stitch. I am just trimming off the edges right around the corners. I'm not worried about so much the other seam allowance, but you can trim it down, but I wouldn't trim it down more than half. If you're someone that struggles with folding in the bottom edge, you technically could sew a little bit across the bottom. You'll just really want to be careful to make sure you have plenty of room to turn the credit card slots right sides out with. So now we're going to go inside that opening we left, and we're going to slowly push the credit card slots right sides out. We will need to use a poking tool at the top to get those corners to lay nicely. This is how your credit card slots look at this point. Now, before I go over to the iron, I am going to fold in that bottom, and then I will go over to the iron and press it. Also, before I press it flat, I will pull out some credit cards and actually check the size to make sure I have it the way I want. This is the last chance you have before you sew onto the lining to make for sure the fit is exactly the way you want it. But I'm just folding in that raw edge and kind of pulling along the sides, and then I'm going to make sure it's laying flat. This is how mine looks. I'm going to take it over the iron, and then we're going to add it to our lining piece. So I've checked the size of my credit card slots. I also pressed them flat, pressed that bottom in really nicely. Now the pattern tells you how far down to place these credit card slots, but also to center them from left to right. I am just going to add a small woven tag here to the side, and now what I'm going to do is sew all the way around these credit card slots to attach them to the lining, and that will close up that bottom in the credit card slots. This is the only thing I'm adding to the lining, so now my linings are complete, and we'll go ahead and start with our zipper installation. To start with installing the zipper, go ahead and pull out the front exterior piece. The pattern tells you 2 marks to make on the top. Be sure to make those marks within your seam allowance because you wouldn't want them to show at the end. Then take your zipper, place it right sides up, and then flip it down, and we are going to attach it in between those 2 marks. It should fit within those 2 marks you made if you measured everything properly, or if you're doing the method that the designer has where yours is straight still, you will just make sure that at that mark you pull your zipper up so it is veering off the bag to make that 90-degree angle that way. If yours is not fitting, go back and make sure you have it trimmed down to the right size. This is a step you would not want to get wrong or have the wrong measurements on. I am just clipping the zipper onto this exterior. It's not necessary, but it'll just help me to make sure that I'm going along that curve. Now, the designer tells us to baste this in place. So I'm going to use a basting stitch, but I'm still going to back stitch whenever I start and stop. Typically what I would do at this point is I would take the lining and place it right sides together and sew the lining to this top part of the zipper. But the designer tells us to actually attach the other exterior to this other free edge of the zipper. I have those same marks made on my zipper, so now what I'll do is I'll have my back exterior right sides up, flip that zipper up, and then start clipping within those marks once again. I am once again going to baste my zipper within those marks. Make for sure it's staying in there. I'm also taking special care to make sure that zipper stays right against the edge of the exterior so I can get a really nice curve. So this is what we have. Both of the exteriors are attached to the zipper. This is how it looks from the top. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out a lining piece. I'm actually attaching the lining to the back. I want my credit card slots to be at the back of this pouch, so I'm going to grab that piece of my lining. So here is that lining piece. I'm going to place it right sides down, but I'm making sure that I'm matching it up to this top piece. So I'm going to clip the lining to the exterior right sides together all along the top edge of that zipper tape. This is how it looks clipped together. Now at this point, we are going to sew from side to side. So all along that top. The designer tells us that while it's not necessary to baste the lining on, she recommends we baste first and then we come back in with the full seam allowance to get a better shaped curve. I'm going to try because I always want to learn new techniques that may make my bags look a little bit better. So I'm just basting here first. So that is the basting stitch done. Now let's come back in with the full seam allowance. Again, I'm going to sew from one side to the other and hopefully keep a really nice curve on these 2 pieces. So there is the first side, which is to the back. Let's open it up and look. We have the lining and exterior attached to the back. So now we need to do the same thing for this exterior. So this is what I'm looking at. You can see clearly that the lining is going to go here. So I'm going to pull out that other lining piece. I'm going to place it right sides together with the other lining. But this time it's going to match that top part of the zipper that is unattached with a lining. It has the exterior attached, but not a lining. I'm going to clip all along here, and then I'm going to do the same steps. I'm going to baste first, and then I'm going to do the full seam allowance on these steps. I'm going to do that part off camera. After I get it done, I'm going to press everything nicely, not pressing from the vinyl, from the lining side, which is a cotton woven, and then we'll come back to top stitch. So now it is time to top stitch. Here is my exterior. Here is my lining. I have everything clipped together, so while I'm top stitching, hopefully nothing will shift. The pattern tells us that we're not top stitching from edge to edge, and we're not top stitching from zipper to zipper. It's an in-between measurement they give us. It is given in the pattern. I'm not going to give it, but I'm going to top stitch from those two measurements that the pattern gives, about 1/8 of an inch away from the folded edge that we sewed earlier. Even though I have everything clipped, I'm still going to be holding everything flat and kind of having a little bit of pressure, not pulling so much, but just making sure that things stay secure and things don't creep up behind my needle. I want to point something out. This is kind of a curve, so I was pulling here and then my finger slipped and I wasn't pulling as tight there, so I have a dip. That is going to make the zipper wavy. Could I pull out those stitches and redo it? I could, but then there would be a big chance of me messing up with the vinyl, so I'm letting it be. But just make sure you have an even pressure and go slow, since you are sewing on a curve, and it is easier if you have the zipper unzipped, in my opinion. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So now that we have the zipper top stitch, now it's time to sew our darts. I'm going to remove all of my clips. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these darts and I'm going to fold them right sides together and just add a clip. The thing is with the dart is that you're going to start sewing with the seam allowance given in the pattern. That part's easy when you start sewing, but you're going to have to keep sewing past that dart, that cutout, to continue on until you run out of the seam allowance. So it's easiest to start at the bottom, in my opinion. So here I am just back stitching while I'm starting with that seam allowance. And now I'm past the cutout, but I'm going to keep sewing, making sure that the rest of that dart stays in line with the seam allowance. So while the cutout ends here, you have to keep sewing to veer off there. If I see that my stitches are sewing, and they are, I'm going to do just about 1/8 of an inch, maybe even 1/16 inch of an inch away from that previous row of stitching, so hopefully the threads won't show through on the vinyl exterior. It's not as big of a deal on the lining, but on that exterior you really don't want those stitches to show. It does take a little bit off, but I can still see a little bit. Not a big deal, at least it's better. So then the pattern tells us that we do need to trim off a little bit of that seam so we can nest these easily. So I'm not cutting into the stitches, and I'm not cutting off that extra row that I did to help secure those stitches. I'm going to do that same sewing of the darts on both of the exteriors and both of the linings. So I will sew a total of 8 darts, and then we are going to put this pouch right sides together with exteriors and linings. I have all the darts sewn, and now I have the exteriors clipped right sides together, the linings clipped right sides together. I have my zipper opened about halfway. The way I did the seams was I nested my seams. So one seam is going one way and the other is going the other way. That will help make sure that I not only distribute the bulk evenly, but I also have a really good chance of sewing across these and getting the darts to line up the way I want. On this part down here, I do have the seam pushed to my lining. I want to sew on this exterior all the way up to this seam, but I don't want to go over to the lining. We're sewing these independently, so I'll sew the exterior first and then I'll sew the lining. So I'm going to sew right up until this spot, but not sew over onto the lining side. I'm going to start sewing in the middle with the seam allowance given in the pattern. So I will start sewing here, go up this side. Then I will flip it over, start sewing here again, and go up to the other side. There is the first side sewn, flipping it now and going to sew up the other side. Now that we have the exterior sewn, we're going to sew the lining, but we definitely want to leave a pretty decent size opening so we can turn this bag right sides out through the opening in the lining. The pattern tells you how big of an opening to leave. The pattern also gives you a different seam allowance for the lining. So make sure you pay attention to both those measurements. You're going to backstitch when you start and stop, and go ahead and do that same stitching from both sides of the opening towards the top. Before I turn this through the opening, I'm going to take the time to trim down my seam allowance. The pattern tells you if you have fleece, you definitely want to make sure you get the fleece out of the sides, because if you don't, I don't have fleece on my sides because I'm using vinyl, but if I were using cotton woven and had fleece, that connector may not fit properly if I have too bulky of a seam. You can see that the connector has a set amount that it can open, so if it's too bulky there, it's not going to fit in there. Make sure you take the time to get that fleece out of your seam allowance so this will fit. Slowly push your exterior through that opening and turn everything right sides out. Before I close up the opening and the lining, I took time to roll out that seam on the bottom and put some clips there just to kind of help it maintain that shape. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and close up this lining. I also took the time to poke out that corner there. I'm just going to push the lining inside by putting my fingers in there and pulling. Add some clips, and then I'm just going to sew along this opening about 1/8 of an inch to close everything up, and then I will push the lining back into the exterior. Now if you just wanted a pouch, your pouch could be completely done like this. This looks great. I love the depth. You can see it kind of has a 3D effect. Beautiful. Front of it is so cute. The zipper pull matches. It's adorable, and you can see that little dip where I messed up my zipper. It's not bad, but it's just a little bit. The technique is perfect. I did have a really nice curved edge. No problems at all. Even though it's a very different way that I'm used to sewing a pouch, it worked out great at the end. I'm going to take my, I guess you would call it D-ring connector, side connector, not for sure the exact name, maybe side connector. But you can see I have 2 screws here. I'm going to take out these screws, and I'm going to use the pattern measurements as to where to place this. I will slip it on the side, and then I'm going to screw it back in. This is going to be the version I'm going to use my crossbody chain with, so I'm going to do 2 of these on it. But then my wristlet version, I finished sewing it as well. I had some clips on it compressing that bottom seam. So I had this one sewn as well. This one will be the wristlet, and it will only have 1 of the side connectors. Before I go off camera and add the connectors, let's go ahead and look at how we make that wristlet strap. Like I said, I used the pattern measurements to cut this out, folded the raw edges to the middle, and then folded again. I went ahead and slipped my swivel hook on. Now what I need to do is I need to take this, fold it right sides together. So you can see that those folded edges are coming together. I'm not folding it like this. I'm folding the folded edges together. I'll take off those 2 top clips, open this up so that I can unfold it and clip this vinyl right sides together. So edge to edge, right sides together, all along that top. Once you have that sewn together, I'm just going to take a little bit of that bulk off the corners. And then I'm going to refold it. So get those centers back. Put everything back together, match up those seams now. You can use one of these bigger clips there since you have a little bit more bulk. Everything should fold back together the way you had it. I like to start sewing on this open side versus the folded side. So I'm going to start sewing here right below where my swivel hook is, just so I don't have to chase it all the way around. And I'm just going to do 1/8 of an inch top stitching all the way around. Once you sew that edge, then flip it over and just sew the same way on the other side. And then what I do is I pull the swivel hook to that seam. I'm gonna actually pull it on this side. Push that seam down. So here's the swivel hook and that seam's on the back. And then if it's not too thick, you can sew across here. If it is too thick, just do a rivet. And that is how I make the wristlet strap for this pouch. I'm going to go off camera, add those side connectors, and I'll come back and show you how everything looks. Both of my Hex bags are complete and they turned out great. Everything turned out perfectly. The pattern is easy to follow, easy to execute. You can see it's repeatable because both of them look great. No problems at all. This is such a cute little fun pouch, especially if you know someone who is an Alice in Wonderland fan. And if they're not, you don't have to put the cat face on these. You could just leave it off and have a nice pouch. You get 6 different options with this pattern. 3 different views, 2 different sizes for each view. You also have the option to make either one a wristlet, crossbody, or just a pouch. So let's look at the crossbody version first. I have the 2 connectors. They go on so simply, no problems at all. This is great if you don't want to have a D-ring, or if last minute you forget the D-ring, keep the connectors on hand so you can use them after you sew the bag. We open it up. It opens nice and wide. You can see our credit card slots are right there, easy to get a hold of. No problems at all. Let's look at the wristlet, which is going to look the same on the inside, except that I did not put the credit card slots on this one. Wonderful pattern, super cute. I am so thankful I had the chance to sew this pattern up and make a tutorial for it. The pattern is from Cork and Copper Designs. The hardware is from Altalia Fiber Arts. This is a collaboration between the both of them. There will be cut and sews available for this. The hardware is all available too. She may be doing a project pack and kind of have a bundle for the hardware. I'm not for sure yet, but this is such a fun way to create and it's just adorable. Thank you so much for watching another tutorial of mine. I'm going to have the links for everything in my description. And I hope today in your sewing room, you're just able to sew up something fun and cute and quirky. And if you want to watch the unboxing video, it is next. If not, thank you and have a great day. So I'm very excited to open this package to actually see what I'm sewing and what I'm working with today. So let's take a look because I have no idea. Wow, so she is so sweet. She actually sent me 2 kits to make for this pattern. That is awesome. So we're going to open these up and just look at these, and then we'll go over everything and start sewing it all up. Oh my gosh, look at this. So this is that heat transfer vinyl that she has put on here. This is the applique, and that is gorgeous. This is the View C, I'm pretty sure. I'll pop it up on screen if I'm wrong, but the one that has the darts, and this is the size large. That is gorgeous. So she put it on the vinyl, pressed it for me, so I don't have to worry about it. So it's great to have a friend like her that will help you with these things. She also sent some matching Alice lining, so I have everything prepped and ready to go. Let's look at the hardware for this kit. On her note, she said I'd have to choose if I wanted pink or gray. I definitely think I want the pink. I'm a pink girl. I want that pink. Look at the chain for the strap. You have an option for strapping here, and so she gave me the chain to try out. Oh, I love how it feels. It's not heavy at all. It's very light, and I don't know if you can see, but there's actually like, is that leather vinyl inside? But it's a very light chain. It's just, it's not heavy. You'll have to feel it to understand, but it feels really good. Wow, we have this matching zipper pull. Let me open this up. So you can see the zipper pull matches that transfer perfectly. This is going to be an amazing pouch. We have side connectors that we'll use to attach that chain hardware on here. And I've had these before, but I never really got good at using them, so I'm really excited to kind of play around to use them more. After we complete the bag, we will use a screwdriver to screw these in on the side. This is a perfect option if you accidentally forget to add a D-ring or anything. You can add these after the bag is completed. She gave me 2 zipper pulls. That's cute. I don't know if I'm supposed to use both or not. I'll have to look at the pattern. But that is the first kit. Let's just look at the second one. I'm going to make both of these, so we'll have both options here. Oh, another one of the transfers on this one. Super cute. Same size, same view. Love it. Just a different color. More of a girly, feminine one instead of the dark Alice view so much. Okay, so this is for my wristlet strap. So instead of using the chain like I'm doing that one, I'm going to do a wristlet strap. Super cool. She gave me some hardware. I don't know if you've ever used the hardware from Altalia Fiber Arts, but it's a like high-end, very sturdy. It's not anything that feels flimsy at all. Great quality. I love her stuff. So 2 swivel hooks. Looks like 2 zipper pulls in this one as well, and more of the side connectors, and then a different color of pink zipper tape. So she gave me some extra material for the credit card slots here, and then she said she even added some extra lining just in case I needed it for anything. So I have everything I need. This is awesome. Now I'd like to say that she's going to sell these really ready to go kits, but I'm sure she's not. But I bet she's going to sell the hardware kits with the zipper pull, with the chain, with everything you need as far as the hardware, probably even some zipper tape. Not for sure. I'm sure she'll be announcing in her group. I'm going to have a link for both Altalia Fiber Arts and Cork and Copper's Facebook groups in my description, so you can join to kind of watch and see what all options she's offering. I'm going to go ahead and just do a little bit of prep work. There's really not anything I need to do, but I will go ahead and cut the zipper tape to the measurements I want, get everything opened, and then I'm going to start sewing up a hex bag with all these amazing supplies. So I hope you enjoyed watching the unboxing video. It was just so much fun to get these supplies. I had no idea what I was getting, so it was just a wonderful gift. Thank you to Amanda for taking the time to not only send me these, I know it is money that you sent them to me, but also the time to cut everything out and prep it for me. You are truly a wonderful person, and I could not be more thankful that you bestowed that kindness upon me, especially at a time where I am struggling and everything and being just a little overwhelmed. Thank you so much. And for everybody else watching, thanks and have a wonderful day.